Hey guys, Ben Paints here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are up at Daytona Tamworth for the 6th round of the Club73 weekend series. Now this one I'm really excited for, and before we get into the main event, we have come up about an hour or so early just to do a quick 20-minute practice session, which is meant to be the video from a week or so ago. But as there was a huge car crash on the motorway, as you probably did see if you follow me over on Instagram, then we have instead managed to push it back to the day of the actual race. So we've come up a bit early. I've come up with a few of my other Vertice teammates. We're going to try and just see what the track's like. Obviously we've never been here before, and test out the Sodi karts. They are the old ones from Daytona Milton Keynes, which last time I used them was in winter last year, and we didn't get on too well with the overall bottom end or top end speed. So let's see if we get a better one today. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, I would like to say, if you are new here, could you please hit the subscribe button down below, as it really does mean a lot to me. And if you enjoyed this video, hit a like on it as well, as we're just going to try and do the best we can today. We're starting in 6th position in the A final. Obviously the layout of this championship, as usual, is a 5-minute practice followed by a 30-minute race. So we're going to see how we get on. I'm not going to put in any footage from the practice I'm about to do in about half an hour, but I will instead leave in the 5-minute practice that we're going to do before the race starts. So we're going to jump into that now and see how we get on today. Here is practice then, guys. So we're heading out for our quick 5-minute session before getting into our 30-minute straight race, where we are starting in 6th position, as I mentioned earlier. So you can see straight away we are right up behind Adam Sheargold, who's one of the better drivers in the championship. So I thought in my head, if I can keep up with him as he's going around, then I'd be onto a pretty good thing. Now, when I did the additional practice, which was a 20-minute straight practice session at the beginning of the day, my fastest lap time was a 1 minute and 6 second lap, which wasn't very quick indeed. And I think I had one of the karts on the grid that weren't too quick, didn't have too much top end speed, and this obviously caused me to not have that quick of a time. And obviously, due to also not being here, I was trying to learn the track as quickly as possible as well. So I was hoping to get down to the 1 minute 4s if I possibly could, because obviously up in the A final, I'm going to want to be as quick as I possibly can be against some of the better drivers in the championship. Now you can see I'm taking a nice wide line going through the last corner, as the wider you take it and the slower entry and faster exit you get, the better launch you're going to get down this long sort of twisty straight towards where the start finish line was sort of registering. So you can see our first lap straight away was already faster than any of the laps I did in practice, a 1 minute 6 dead, and I think I got a 1 minute 6.3 in practice. So I knew that if I could keep putting the laps in as quickly as I could and sticking behind one of the drivers that is very strong, then I would have a really good time. So you can see here once again taking some wider lines. I understood in the practice session that I did that you didn't really want to take too many of the curbs that much in the quote-unquote new karts that are being used. Obviously these are the karts that were used over at Daytona Milton Keynes, and they have now been moved over to Daytona Tamworth. So these were quote-unquote new karts. They didn't feel very new, and they didn't feel very nice to drive either, but we just had to crack on and get as best a lap time we could, just to see where we stacked up against some of the other drivers on the grid. Now you can see a little bit of chaos going on. We were able to slip down the inside of Adam there, and also managed to go around another driver who had, I think, overcooked it going into the final corner. But despite all this, we're down into the low 1 minute 5 second laps. So you see I've gone right up behind Clint there, the man that organises the whole championship, and I've been able to get past him quite quickly. I was unsure if he was waiting for me to go past, or if that was genuinely the bottom end or top end, sorry, of his kart. That was the kart that I used in practice, and I understood that it was a little bit slower, so I assumed that that was the actual difference in some of the karts on the day. Now, there were 1 or 2 karts that were really, really good. So you had kart number 5. That was the kart that everyone really wanted to have. It had really good top end speed, and this sort of allowed you, obviously due to the big long curvy straight going down the last section of the lap, this really allowed you to gain any time that you would have lost going through the corners a little bit slower. So that was a car everyone really wanted to have. And then there were one or two that were a little bit off the pace, but for the most part I found most of the other karts were within contention of one another, and this led to some really nice battles later in the race. And you can see again, by going round and just putting in the laps, we've managed to get our lap time down to a 1 minute 4.564 second lap time. And I knew that there was more to come as we continued going around, as I was getting more and more confident with the car I was using and sort of adapting to it by really making sure I wasn't completely slamming down on the throttle. You had to use a little bit of throttle control here, didn't have to use too much of the brake. Obviously a lot of these corners are long sweeping corners, which meant that all you really had to do was lift off and just really coast through the corner to ensure that you got the best sort of mid-range momentum through the corner. The higher that was, the faster you were going to get through the corner, and earlier you could get on the power again to continue throughout the rest of the lap. And you can see we have another driver up ahead now that we're trying to sort of catch up to, getting as tight as I can to that last corner whilst also carrying my momentum through the corner, as I mentioned, because most of this section was all flat out, and the faster you go through that section of the lap, the faster you're going to be going down this big long curvy straight. And this is reflected in the lap times, a 1 minute 4.097, so right on target to where I wanted to be. And we're going to see if I was able to go any faster as we lead on to the rest of practice here. I think we've got a couple of laps left to go, obviously only 5 minute practice, so in theory only about 5 laps to be done. So we've done 3 so far, and we're going to see if we can improve on that as we carry on going around. We have Samuel Essery up ahead of us as well. He's another very good driver, and you could see how much we're gaining on him, so I didn't think he had the best of karts either, and this really did show sort of the disparity between all of the karts that were on the track, which was a bit of a shame, but you have to work with what you've got in rental karting, and lucky for us, we were drawn a kart that was in fact usable rather than one that was a bit of a dog. And you can see once again taking a wider entry, taking it a little bit too wide as I clip the barrier there on the exit of the corner, and that obviously loses us a bit of momentum coming down the start finish straight. Trying to lean forward to deploy a little bit of human DRS here, and I want to just apologise. I really wanted the camera to be a little bit lower in this one, just so you could see the inputs that I was making on the brake and the accelerator and also the wheel, but alas, the camera seems to be raised up to the sky in this one again, unfortunately, which seems to be the case in both of the Daytona videos that I've done recently. But in light of that, we are actually catching right up to the back of Sam Essery here. You can see we're taking some nice clean lines, and this is really allowing us to tag onto the back of him and maybe even go for a move if we're feeling a little bit brave. You can see through each of the corners our car, we're just managing to maintain the grip through each of the corners, and this is really allowing me to gain as much time as I can, whilst also just not really trying to force my way past, but look for a little bit of an opening. Obviously this is still practice, I don't really want to go for a ridiculous send and send us both off. So you can see again, braking earlier, this allows me to get a better run coming down the last corner here before the straight, and then we're able to slip up the inside, going down the start finish straight, deploying a little bit of human DRS. Once again looking back over our shoulder, and we come across the line on our last practice lap with a 1 minute 4.497, so 4 attempts off our fastest lap. And with practice done, let's see how we get on in the race. So here we are then, guys, lining up in the A final. The most nervous I've ever been for a race in my whole karting career, starting in 6th position, obviously with the grids reversed. Let's see how we get on in this one. And we got underway. Not the best start here, sort of stuck to the outside. I couldn't really slot inside. As you can't see, we have Megan Quirk on our inside there, so we had to sort of stick to the outside line, not somewhere that I really wanted to be, and this sort of pushed us away, and we were sort of stuck trying to run around the outside of the drivers up ahead, trying to stick to the middle of the track here, but obviously I know there's going to be a train forming on that inside line, and we come round this corner here, the sweeping hairpin at the end of the straight, and I was trying to stick to the inside line here. So at the moment we've lost 1 position here to Jack Underwood, who's up ahead of us. He's now up into 6th, and he's also gone for another move down the inside of Thiago Banza up into 5th place. So we really did have a little bit of a bad start there, not the worst, and we did get loaded in the back through the last 2 corners, and that's caused us to lose 3 or 4 kart lengths to the drivers up ahead. So I was forced to drive a little bit more defensive here as we come around the last sort of section of the track, the couple of hairpins, or the S section. So I just had to sort of bide my time and really wait and see if there's any sort of opening coming up for us. So you can see first place sort of shooting off into distance. There's a whole manner of carnage going on the last sort of hairpin there. And Tyler Kerr sort of just got pushed into the barrier, so he was a little bit frustrated there, but I was just trying to tuck behind here in 7th, try and force my way to tag onto the back of this pack that had been created, just to try and not force any moves. Obviously it's a 30-minute race, so we got plenty of time to go for moves later in the race, and this is something that I do enjoy about the format of Club 73. You're able to try and bide your time a little bit more rather than going for completely audacious moves. Tyler's been forced out there, and he's now down into 6th place where we started, and he goes for a move up the inside on Tiago, who's gone around the outside of him here, so they're going side by side. I knew with all this fighting it was only going to be a matter of time before the opportunity opens up. Now I look down the inside here, but think better of it, because I didn't really want to get squeezed into the wall. I knew Tyler was going to try and go around the outside of the driver in kart number 8, and he sort of makes it stick here up the inside. This then leads the gap to be open for me just to slot my kart down the inside, and we're back up to where we started at the beginning of the race. Took a bit more of a defensive line here in the middle of the track just to try and ensure that I kept the position, but obviously by taking that tighter line I have compromised myself coming out of the hairpin or the last big corner before the straight. So this caused me to lose a little bit of time to drivers up ahead, but I knew that they were only going to fight a little bit more. And you can see what a good start Jack has had, as he's straight up into 2nd place. You've got Adam in 3rd, and Tyler's managed to make the move on Tiago down the inside up into 4th. So we knew that there was going to be a lot of battling going on up ahead, and we just wanted to try and not lose touch of the drivers up ahead, but we also wanted to try and maintain the gap, or create the gap to the drivers behind. You can see Tyler going for another move on Adam Sheargold up ahead, so he's just sort of forcing the gap to be made, and this is only allowing me to sort of catch up through the more technical part of the track where there's more corners, trying to use all of the track as much as I can to keep my momentum up as much as I can. You can see with the battling going on up ahead, this has allowed me to really close up behind in this little train of 4 karts that has formed, and by doing this I'd also been able to gain away from the drivers up ahead. I could have gone for a little move down the inside of Tiago there, but I decided, as I mentioned, to sort of bide my time. I'm still in the position where I started. Now my personal goal for this race was to finish in the top 10. Obviously I knew the calibre of drivers in this one, so I thought if I could finish anywhere near the top 10 I'd be really happy. So the fact I was in 6th at this point was more than enough for me, and I was really hoping I could push on and try and get some more positions if I can. You see Tyler and Adam still having a little bit of a battle. I didn't want to sort of send it down the inside or try and make a move on Tiago's. I didn't want to compromise both of us and allow the drivers behind to catch up, so I decided to back off a little bit here in this situation and really try and regroup and wait for the opening to come to me. So I was just trying to practice patience. This is something that, if I compare this to SRK, I haven't really been able to do. So I was just trying to practice my patience and wait for the opening to occur. You can see again how close we are to the drivers up ahead, pretty much pushing Tiago through the corners now, and he's looking for a little move up the inside of Adam, who I think was going a little bit all over the place in the kart he was in. I don't think he was getting on with it too well, and you can see here I was getting a really nice exit out of the last corner, and this was allowing me to get a nice run coming down the last sort of straight once again. So you can see really tucking up behind in the toe. I'm able to really close up behind Tiago here as we come across the start finish line, and by being so close and taking a little bit of a wider entry, we've been able to sort of slingshot our way past up the inside and maintain the position up into P5, which I was really happy with. So that's 1 position gained so far in this race compared to where we started, and I could see that Adam was really not getting that too good of a run out of each of the corners. He was using a bit too much of the curb here in the kart he was in, and it was just causing his kart just to not really maintain the grip as much as he wanted to. You can see the back end of the kart was sort of sliding out, so I was really didn't want to force my way past, but I was trying to let him know I was there, giving him a little bit of a tap before going into the corner, and again just trying to make him drive it as defensive as I can to try and look for probably one of the best moves that I made on the day here. So we're right up behind him, and as we come into the last corner here, the hairpin, I'm able to take a nice wide line, nice entry, and I'm able to get an absolutely perfect switchback on him and get past him before the final sort of kink. So now we're up into 4th position. We've gained 2 places now, and now it is just a matter of getting our head down and trying to catch up with the guys that are securing the podium spots so far. And you can see our pace is really good in the kart. We're using a 1 minute 4.314 as our fastest lap so far, and obviously this is only 3 tenths off, or 2.5 tenths off our fastest lap in practice. So I was really back on the pace early compared to where I was in practice. So I was continuing the momentum throughout this race, and now it was just a matter of trying to get ahead of the 2 drivers that I've overtaken and maintain that gap and sort of secure 4th position for now. Obviously, I'd be really happy with 4th place, but we're never happy with sticking in the position we have. We always want to go for more, especially when a podium is on offer. So my goal at this point was just to try and put in as fast lap times as I could and just try and execute a really well thought out strategy by just being as consistent as I can be, sort of staying in my own race, not focusing on other people, and hoping that the drivers up ahead get into a little bit more of a scrap, and that would only cause them to slow each other down and allow me to catch up behind them. So you can see we're coming across the line on this lap, our fastest lap of the day so far, a 1:03.830, which is really on the pace of where we want to be. And obviously, being one of the heavier drivers on the track as well, I was really happy with my pace. I think I ended up being 10th fastest overall on the day. Some could say it's due to the kart, but I'd like to say it's due to skill. So we're going to carry on throughout the rest of the footage here. You can see me sort of closing up each corner. We are getting closer and closer to the guys up ahead. Obviously, they are beginning to battle with one another, and this is only allowing me to close up more and more. You can see Tyler's trying to go for a move down the inside of the driver who is in 2nd position, doesn't quite make it work, and every time that this happens, it's only allowing me to get closer and closer with each corner and each lap that ticks away. We're getting closer to the guys up ahead, and when you see this as a driver, in my opinion, the closer you can see people getting reeled in, the more confidence it gives you to really push yourself to try and catch up to the other guys ahead. So you can see me really deploying human DRS here to try and lower as much wind resistance as I can, and we come across the line with our fastest lap of the day according to my lap timer, which may not be 100% accurate, but it's the only thing I've got to work with. Obviously I don't have every lap log, so we're going to have to use the timer that has been provided for you guys. So 1:03.630, really happy with this pace, really solid pace, and I'm really beginning to catch up to the guys up ahead now at this point. And as I mentioned, this is just filling me with more and more confidence as the race goes on, because obviously if you find yourself losing time to the guys up ahead, then you're going to sort of feel a bit diminished and sort of a sense of, well, we're just going to have to stick with what we have. But you can see Tyler's gone for a move down the inside there, up into 2nd place. I think they made a little bit of contact there, which compromised the person who's now in 3rd place, and this only allowed me to be even more confident, as I mentioned, with 9 minutes gone in the race, and now we're really beginning to motor and tag on to the back. So deploying as much human DRS as I can. Obviously 3rd place is in sight, a podium's on offer, and we come across the line on this lap even faster according to the timer, a 1:03.413. but as you can see, I'm looking over my shoulders here quite a bit, sticking to the middle of the track, but the driver behind me in kart number 5, who I believe has come from quite far back, really just very simply rode down the inside and gained the position. So I understood in my head at this point, I used a little bit of more logic. Rather than trying to force my way back, I was sort of trying to tell him every time he looked back with my hands, hasn't quite captured on the camera, just to sort of push on, push forward. I'm not going to go for a move on you, because I knew that this kart was just unbeatable on the day, really. It was really fast, and unless the driver up ahead really made a huge mistake, I wasn't really going to beat it. Obviously they've come from far back as well, so they've already whittled off half of the field, and you can see here I am closing in on him, but you can see the exit he gets at the last corner, and you can see me raising my hand a little bit to be like, what? But yeah, he sort of just had so much momentum coming out of that corner while not getting a good exit that I really thought that there wasn't really going to be much chance unless he was able to have a big battle with the driver in 3rd place. But as you can see, he's done the exact same thing as he did to me and made the move stick before the corner's even been done. So I knew at this point my only way of being able to beat this driver would be if the driver up ahead put up some resistance, but instead he did just sort of leave the door open in the sort of same manner as I did, which is fair enough, and that sort of allowed him then to just sail off into the distance, as you'll see. But the driver up ahead did get compromised a little bit from the driver in 3rd place being a little bit scruffy, and this allowed me to really close up behind him and now get into the tow, which is really crucial to try and make a move of our own. So we are in 5th place at this point, still a position up from where we started, which I was really happy with, but from this driver in 4th place at the moment, sort of being caught every lap, and now I'm really in his proximity. I knew in myself that 4th place was pretty much the best position I could really go for at this point in the race. So I thought if I could make this move stick on him and get as close as I can, you can see me bumping him down the straight. Obviously I wanted to try and work with him a little bit, because if we could work together we might be able to make a move back. I backed off a little bit coming out of the first corner, but obviously due to just the sheer speed of kart number 5, which if you are a long time viewer you will know in my video at Milton Keynes in December last year was the kart Arthur Langley used when he absolutely flew past me down the straight. So I knew that this kart did have a curse against me, so I knew that this kart was a really good kart compared to some of the others. Obviously this is the same fleet from Milton Keynes I mentioned, so I knew at this point that he was sort of just going to race off into the distance, and even if I tried to work together with the driver up ahead, I didn't really think it was going to work. So at this point in the race I thought maybe it is time to try and secure that 4th place, and maybe even try and catch up to 3rd, or maybe even the other 2 guys if they keep battling with one another up ahead. Obviously we're almost halfway into the race now at this point, so deploying human DRS, trying to get as close as I can coming into the first corner. Obviously we want to be as close as we can be to try and set up a move. You can see we're moving outside a little bit wider to try and get a bit of a slingshot on him. He leaves the door open really wide here going into the second corner, so I decided to slot it down the inside, but I didn't quite run him off wide enough. I gave him a little bit too much space, and this allowed him to come back. And obviously due to this failed overtake attempt, you can see how much time we've now lost to the driver up ahead. So I went for a little bit of a desperate move here into this hairpin. Didn't quite pay off, so I was looking over my shoulder here to think, am I really compromising myself now to the guys behind? Obviously I'm seeing the gaps being created ahead of us, so from all these failed attempts I am sort of compromising the pair of us by doing this. So I decided maybe we should stop doing this for a couple of corners, have a little bit of a regroup and think for a more logical way to get past. So you can see we lost a little bit of time there, not taking the correct line through sort of the S section there on the track, and instead we got a way better run once again down through the last couple of corners here, and this is only going to allow me to get in the toe once again and get into the same scenario as we have been in the last lap. So you can see I'm really pushing him through here, letting him know I'm there, and again just executing the switchback move that I was trying to do, having him defend a little bit, but again he just leaves the door open really wide for me just to slot the kart down the inside. This time I learned from my mistakes, run him a little bit wider there, and that allows me up into P4, which I was really happy with. Didn't expect to be in P4 at this point in the race. Obviously, as I mentioned, my goal was to be in the top 10, starting in 6th from the calibre of drivers in the race. But luckily now at this point it was just a case of getting our heads down, putting in the best lap times that we could do, and just trying to see if we could catch up to some of the other guys up ahead. Obviously I wasn't really expecting to catch up to the driver in 3rd place, but I was hoping in the back of my mind, if he did have the pace, and you can see he does, to catch up with the drivers in 1st and 2nd, Jack and Tyler, then maybe they get into a little bit of a battle, and this would allow me to come back into contention. Obviously we are only halfway through the race, so there's still plenty of time left. However, as we come across the line on this lap, with our lap time being a 1:03.513, which I was really happy with, we are instead going to skip forward a fair few laps to the second last lap, because if I'm honest, absolutely nothing happened. You can see that the driver in kart number 5 has raced off, racing against Tyler, and Jack sort of dropped off a little bit, but to my dismay, me and Jack were literally matched on pace for the next 12 minutes of the race. So it was a case of me just driving around lap after lap, trying to gain a couple of attempts here and there that just weren't coming. So I thought I'd leave in the overtake of the back marker on the second to last lap, who sort of let me through. But as you can see, we have really made no progress compared to where we had done earlier in the race. Our lap times came down to 1:03.380 according to our timer, and our last lap was a 1:03.446, which, as I mentioned, did put us 10th fastest on the day, which I was really happy with, being one of the heavier drivers. And this wasn't in fact the second to last lap, this was in fact the last lap that you're seeing, and you see the checkered flag up ahead. So we are coming around here in P4, which I was really happy with. I couldn't be more happy with this. Obviously podium was just out of our reach, so not really too much we could have done, but I think we did really well with the position that we started in and the kart we've been given. So once again, really good points for this race. I believe that's another 18 points that we can mark on our tally for the championship, which really puts us in contention for the top 3 in the pro class, which I'm really happy with. But in the meantime, let's jump into some post-race thoughts. Okay then guys, so we've just finished off our A final race. Really happy once again with that performance. We had a little bit of a tussle at the beginning. We went from 6th down to about 8th, I think, and there was a lot of sort of loading. I almost got taken out completely at one point. The kart felt like it was going a little bit sideways, but we were able to battle it back in the kart that we had and work with what we had, and we were able to get back up through the pack. Unfortunately, we did have Jack up ahead of us, who finished in 3rd place. I just didn't quite have the pace to try and catch up. I didn't have the overspeed, so unfortunately we were just sat down in 4th position. But again, a really solid result, good points, really happy with that. And that's 2 4th places this year we've had now, where we've just missed out on the podium, but it's all positives we can take away from it. Obviously, we're able to escape the pack behind and just sort of run away with it into the rest of the race. So very happy once again. So I'm going to leave the results for the race up on the screen, or the championship, sorry, for both the class I'm in, which is the pro class. I'll leave the results up on the screen, and also the overall results. So hopefully with that, we've got a nice few chunk of points. We've moved up the category a little bit more once again, and we'll see where that puts us next time when we head off to Red Lodge for the next round of the Club 73 weekend series. So this does in fact bring us to the end of the video. So I hope if you guys have enjoyed, please could you leave a like on it down below, and if you are new to the channel, can you also hit the subscribe button, as it really does mean the world to me. But in the meantime, just going to travel on home now, so I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.